I came into the league early, so I was drafted at 20. So I'm 28 right now, going into year 9, and I'll be
puppy. You're a puppy,
and it feels good.
Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another episode of Half Forgotten History, Season 8. Allen Robinson has been one of the unsung, really good players in the NFL. Wherever he's been so far in his career, his quarterback play has been spotty at best, but now he believes he's landed in a really good spot with, of course, the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford as his quarterback, Cooper Kupp on the other side of the receiving duo. What's it like going from teams that hadn't had a lot of hope going into a season to a team that's now one of the contenders to potentially win a Super Bowl again, the Los Angeles Rams? Lot to get to with Allen Robinson. A really interesting interview. Hope you enjoy it now. Allen Robinson in Half Forgotten History. All right, let's start here. I'm not casting any dispersions, Allen, but let's just be realistic. Blake Bortles, Mitchell Trubisky, and now you get to play as a wide receiver with Matthew Stafford and the Rams.
I'll say this, it's a good feeling, and it's a good feeling just in the fact of, whenever you have people who have been played, coached at such a high level, the details in which we communicate, the details in which concepts are explained, the details in which, we're coached, is very, very, very in depth. And as a player, that's what you want. You want to have and to know all the specifics that go behind each and everything. So being able to see that, and experience that, in my short time here this far, has definitely been awesome.
How quickly did this come together, and did you realize that you were going to end up in Los Angeles with the Rams?
Pretty quickly, I'll say. It was one of those things where, again, like once it came about, it was a no-brainer for me. It was a situation of, obviously you're going to a Super Bowl champion team, but again with Coach McVay, with Matthew, with Cooper Kupp, with Coach Yarbs, with all the guys that they have, and I've said this now plenty of times, but me being able to see players come from different environments, from different teams, whether if it's college, other professional teams, or whatever the case may be, have come to Los Angeles. They've really been able to be at their best self and play at their highest level.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Coach Yarbrough, because for people that don't know, Coach Yarbrough was a wide receiver coach for the Rams. He was a college teammate of my good friend Mark Schlereth, who I do a bunch of stuff with. And everybody seems to rave about the things he does with wide receivers. And you just mentioned his name. So obviously it's someone that's already had an effect on you in the short time you've been with the organization. How did he manage to make that impact with you already?
Each and every day, Coach Yarbs is very specific, when it comes into how he coaches, things for guys to improve, things to look for, when we're on the field, not creating bad habits, going about being the best receiver that we can be each and every day, and as a vet and as a player, that's something that you truly appreciate. You want to be coached, you want to be coached hard, you want to be pushed to the level, where nothing but your best is acceptable. That's the level that you want to be pushed to as a player.
Yeah, and we'll get into more what the expectations are with you and the Rams in a minute. But this is this podcast is also about the history and your journey into the league. So when, as a kid, did you think, hey, I might be able to play in college? Like, was there a moment in a game, in a practice, something said to you? Was there a moment where it all clicked?
I'll say the first experience that I can recall was my cousin. He played at Illinois State, and I went to go see him play. I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was playing flag football at the time. I was pretty good in flag. Like I said before, it was like the year before I started playing like contact football. And I remember sitting in the stands watching his college game and thinking, this is what I want to do. And
so at that young, you were like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. What about it? Like, was it just the majesty of it all, or just the competitive? Was it the crowd? What was it?
It was everything. I remember waking up at 4:00 in the morning. All my family kind of getting together to drive up to Illinois State to watch my cousin play, and it was such a big deal. It was such a big thing. It was like I couldn't wait for the experience myself, my family, and everything. And once I got to the game, seeing the atmosphere, seeing how everything was, it was like this is what I want to do. And at the time I also played basketball as well, but
Yeah.
that kind of environment was what I wanted to be a part of at some point in time, whether that was basketball or football.
All right. So how did you get from Detroit to Penn State? What was that process like for you?
So my high school quarterback, actually Rob Bolden, he went to Penn State the year before me. He was the first true freshman to ever start at quarterback for Joe Paterno. So they were already recruiting, from my school. And once my high school quarterback went up there, I got a chance to go up there with him unofficially and things like that. And I knew that that's where I wanted to play. And I went to the spring game. I'll never forget it. It was about 80,000 people there. And I went and I was like, wow, this is unreal. Like, this is the place where I want to go. I want to play. My high school quarterback is here. It all makes sense, and I was able to do that.
Yeah. They talk about that whiteout game that they play at night, and it's one of the best visual games in college football. What's that atmosphere like when you go into that game?
It's something that you can't even really explain, and it's something that I can't even think of any other football environments that have come close to that, and that's truly being honest. I've played in some playoff games. I've played in a lot of different environments, but that whiteout game, typically against the opponents that we're playing, is going to be against a good team, whether that's a rival game or something like that. And it's just that atmosphere is unmatched.
Yeah, and you were at Penn State in the middle of it when it all exploded. I mean, as a player who's just trying to play the sport he loves and just potentially work your way into having a shot at a playing career in the NFL, when the whole thing with Sandusky and Paterno, when that whole thing exploded, what was going through your mind?
It was a lot, at the same time, being 18 years old at the time, I just wanted to make what was the best decision, and it was so many different things. We could transfer, freely transfer. I loved Penn State. I had enjoyed being there. I had dreamed about playing there. I felt like I had earned myself the right to be able to play going into my sophomore year. So it was a lot going on. Again, I didn't redshirt as a freshman, so I had some familiarity with, playing and things like that. And ultimately, the best decision for me was to stay and stick it out. But, it was a tough decision to make. Again, it was tons of coaches calling and everything like that. So, it was definitely hard.
And I feel like when something like that, which is so unseemly and it has nothing to do with the players, when that happens, it almost feels like you guys are forgotten in all of this, right? Because it's, what about this and what about that? And you're just out there trying to do what you came to school to do. How difficult was it managing the circus?
It was, I would say it got a little bit easier, as time progressed, obviously. But, early on, it was a lot, like you said, it was a circus, constantly from the time everything kind of happened to media to everything. It was a constant circus to coaches being on our campus. It was a lot, it was a lot. It wasn't anything it wasn't how I foresaw, my first year and a half of college football being. So it was a circus.
Yeah, nobody signs up for a scholarship and says, and I really hope one of the greatest sex scandals in the history of college football happens while I'm there. I mean, how do you prepare for that mentally as an 18-year-old? How did you process it?
I process it. I in my football career, I've always tried to keep the main thing as much as possible, which is football. Yeah. So even in that situation, I thought about everything. The main thing for me was I wanted to be able to get on the field. I enjoyed playing at Penn State. It is a Big Ten school. I'm going to be playing against good competition, and those were all the things that I was able to compartmentalize, as all that was going on, to ultimately to keep me to stay there, to then, like I said before, to then go on and play against these teams in these big games. And that's what I came there to do.
Well, listen, whatever you did worked because you ended up being a second-round pick in the draft in 2014. I'm sure everybody feels that you probably thought you were a first-round pick, right? What was your thought process going into the draft, and what were you hearing from teams?
Yeah, so also to kind of piggyback on what we just were talking about, I want to always give a shout out to Coach O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was a person who came into the program who helped me tremendously as a young player. Him and his staff, Coach Stan Hickson was my receiver coach as well. So those two guys were definitely tremendous to my maturation as a player. But going into the draft process, again, everybody thinks they're first round guys. It's funny. I I saw Devontae Adams say that he thought he was going to the Panthers. You know, and it's funny because I thought the same thing. I spent a lot of time with the Panthers like the week of the draft, like us, and that's where I thought I was going as well. And I ended up picking Kelvin Benjamin. But it was a roller coaster ride. You know, it's one of those things where for me, I just wanted to do everything to the best of my ability, from the combine to pro day and everything, and then wherever the chips fell, you know, I was cool with that. You know, and ultimately I ended up getting drafted into a good situation where I came in, you know, playing very early into my professional career.
Yeah, so you go to Jacksonville when they were in the midst of that. Like, it seemed like every year they had a top 5 pick, but you were sort of when they started to put it together, and you know, you were there for those 2 glory years, I guess, of Jacksonville when they were on the come up. And what was it like being a part of something that was really down and sort of feeling, hey, we're moving in the right direction?
It was very exciting. When I say very exciting, to come into a situation where it's a 3-13 team, like you said before, picking in the top 5 year in, year out, to my 4th and my last year there, walking into the stadium in a wild card game, seeing it fully sold out. You know, that was the reason why they brought a lot of us there, you know, to be able to accomplish that, to be able to change that culture. You know, like I said before, for my first game playing there, the 3rd row of the stadium will be tarped. You know, so being able to see it fully sold out for a wild card game, you know, that was special. It was a special feeling.
And then, of course, 2017 season, you get injured first week of the season. And that turned out to be a really magical year for the Jaguars. They make it all the way to the AFC Championship game. What was that feeling like, seeing the team achieving all this success and you got hurt week 1? You couldn't really be a part of it on the field.
It was tough. It's one of the toughest things that I feel like I had to go through. You know, being able to, you know, sitting back and watching my teammates at the same time, you know, being excited for my teammates and being excited for what they were accomplishing, you know, but ultimately losing that game against New England. You know, I think about that, you know, just in barbershop talk all the time. It's like if I was on the field, you know, in that game, you know, I feel like Jacksonville Jaguars might have been able to have them a Super Bowl. You know, again, I mean, it was a game that came down to the wire in New England at Gillette. I believe Jacksonville was up 10 or something like that with like 7 minutes left in the game.
10 points in the fourth quarter. 10 points in the fourth quarter.
10 points in the fourth quarter, you know, and it's like, wow, like if I had been able to be out there and help my teammates, you know, I think it's a good possibility and good chance, you know, that we're able to maybe come out with the W that game and then go into the Super Bowl.
Did you travel? Were you there at the game, or were you back in Jacksonville?
No, I traveled. I was at the game. Yeah. I traveled. I started traveling late in that season, around like week 12 or 13. I started traveling with the team.
Yeah, because I remember early in that game, Gronk got laid out on a big hit, and there was the inadvertent whistle on that Miles Jack play that might have sealed the game if he had been able to take that back to the house. I remember watching that game, and I'm thinking, this is the Patriots. They're at home. They're down by 10 in the fourth quarter to Jacksonville. What the hell is going on? That must have felt like, what was the energy like on the Jacksonville sidelines in that game?
It was such a confident group of guys, from Jalen Ramsey to A.J. Bouye, Malik Jackson, Calais Campbell, Yannick, Dante Fowler, Miles Jack, Telvin Smith, across the board. It was a ton of talent and guys who had played a lot of ball and guys who had success at high levels. That's young guys and vets. So it wasn't too shocking to anybody on the sideline. Again, that was a year where the defense played with an extreme chip, and each and every game they came into it, they wanted to dominate the other offense. And that's they kind of set the tone for the team.
That team and that 2017 Jacksonville team, to me, is like the epitome of how fast things change in the NFL. I don't think there's a single player left on the Jags roster that was on that 2017 team. That's how quickly it all fell apart.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. Again, and it's so crazy because, at that point in time, we had so many different young guys. I was in my fourth year. I believe Jalen Ramsey, he was in his second year. A lot of our guys on defense was in year 2, year 3. So we had so many young, talented players on that team.
Yeah, I remember Jalen showed up to training camp that one year with the Brinks truck, and the comedian coming out of the truck said, "I'm trying to get paid," and now you're teammates with him again, and we'll get to that in a second. But why don't we take our first break here? When we come back with Allen Robinson, we'll talk about going to Chicago, what those years were like, and then we'll figure out what happens next going forward with the Super Bowl champion LA Rams. We're back on this episode of Half Forgotten History right after this. All right, everybody, time for a little Allen Robinson trivia brought to you by our good friends at Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Vans, unlocking your potential to drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. Heading into this season, Allen Robinson has caught a grand total of 40 touchdowns in his 8-year career. But which quarterback has thrown the most touchdown passes to Allen Robinson? We'll give the answer at the top of the next break. You know, you open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter and you're opening more than doors. You're unlocking potential to do your own thing, be your own boss, and live out your own dreams. With 16 body types, your choice of a gas or diesel engine, and thousands of ways to customize, a Sprinter van is capable and versatile enough to help you drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. So go ahead, unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. All right, back on this episode of Half Forgotten History with now Rams wide receiver Allen Robinson. So when we left off, we were talking about how achingly close you guys were in the 2017 AFC Championship Game. And as it turns out, that was your last game as a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When did you know that you were leaving, and how did you get to Chicago?
Probably maybe a month before free agency. I had a conversation with Coach Coughlin at the time. And we kind of spoke as far as, kind of the direction that they were moving in and that they foresaw me in that, but it was other things a part of that as well. So at that time, I kind of knew leaving that meeting, that I wasn't going to be on the roster just based on, like I said before, many different things that they were trying to accomplish overall. So at that point in time, I started to, figure out, where and what might be best, for me to kind of go in and truly revive myself from a career standpoint, coming off an injury and things like that.
And how quickly did Chicago sort of step up and say, hey, we believe you can do that here?
Pretty quickly. And, with the staff that they had coming, with them coming from running a similar offense to Kansas City, I knew for myself and the skill set that I brought to the table that I would be able to really utilize every part of my game and be moved around, play in the slot more, play outside, run the whole route tree and things like that.
So tell me about the Matt Nagy experience, because this is a guy like, I know Matt, I've known him a long time. I thought he did a great job in Kansas City. I think he'll do well back there under Andy Reid's tutelage again. But none of it ever just seemed to mesh. You know what I mean? He went into Chicago and it was this offensive-minded coach, and he had a bunch of trick plays and all this kind of stuff. But the offense was the thing that was kind of holding the Bears back. And how much do you think that was Mitchell? How much do you think that was Matt Nagy? What was your take of the situation? Someone who was in there, and by the way, was very productive in that offense.
Yeah, it was us as an offense trying to establish an identity and trying to do what was best for the entire group, and I think that we never kind of found that middle ground, to be able to accomplish everything that we wanted to accomplish. But I do think that, for us as a offense, we weren't as productive as we wanted to be over time. But I think that we did have moments where we stepped up to the plate and was able to help us, get to two playoffs, in that 4 seasons of my time being there. So we did have some productive moments. We just weren't as consistent as we wanted or needed to be.
Yeah, and that one playoff game in 2018 was just – it was a mess, man. And that was the double doink game. I think that's what everyone will remember it. Like, what's it like living through that, seeing the opportunity like present itself, and then doink, doink, game over, season over, what the hell just happened?
It was tough. It was tough because we had clicked down the stretch. Me and Mitch, and just the offense in general. We had a couple key completions down the stretch. I believe we got the ball back. Well, they were kicking off with 47 seconds to go. I think we were down 2 or so. Tariq Cohen got a long return to put us in position to be able to make something happen. I had a couple catches on that drive, so we felt good about it. Again, I mean, going into that drive, we practiced 2-minute situations, all season. So we were definitely built for that situation, and we got to where we wanted to get to as far as, a position to be able to attempt a field goal that was makeable, and unfortunately, we came out on the short end of that stick.
Double doink game. I'll never forget it. It's just one of the craziest things I've ever seen. You mentioned Tariq Cohen. I'm glad you did, because he just recently was trying to get back into the league and looks like he ruptured his Achilles. I don't know if you read the article he wrote for the Players Tribune talking about the things that he'd gone through. Did you as a teammate know all that was going on, or did he hide that from everybody with the things he was dealing with?
Yeah, I didn't know everything that was going on. Certain things we knew as some of his close buddies and teammates that was going on, but you didn't know the depth of it. And
Yeah.
Tariq is one of those guys who I don't know how tall he is, but he has the heart of a giant, and he can take on so many different things, and when I say take that on, like I said before, him dealing with all that, and still being a player that he was, and like I said before, he's as tough as they come, man. It's been unfortunate, some of the cards he's been dealt, but there's no doubt in my mind if it's anybody who can come back from any of that and who can bounce back and still be who they were and make a name. Well, not make a name for themselves, but really, hone in on that person that they are is Tariq. He's a person who can come back from anything. I'm a true believer of that. He has that big of a heart.
Yeah, and for those that haven't read it, please go check it out on the Players Tribune. It's from Tariq Cohen. It's called "A Note to My Younger Self," about the things that he didn't let a lot of people know that were happening in his family situation with some of his brothers, and the things that he sort of went through and took on as a burden as he was trying to also make a name for himself in the NFL. It's really a heartbreaking story, and we certainly hope that he recovers from that injury. That it certainly looked like it was a ruptured Achilles, and he's trying to get back into the league. So all the best for Tariq Cohen as he continues to go forward. Then the Bears move on from Mitchell Trubisky, and now he's going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers after a year backing up Josh Allen at Buffalo. And, of course, Justin Fields is going to be the presumptive guy going forward. What were your observations, thoughts about his rookie season?
It was us trying to we were trying to do a lot as a team. When I say do a lot as a team, it was a lot of moving parts. Unfortunately for us, from a skill position standpoint, we didn't take many snaps in preseason with him. So as we're going through the season now, it's us adjusting to everything and many different things on the fly. It's us trying to make up for, time lost that we didn't have in OTAs or didn't have in camp, on certain throws, on many different things, So it was us trying to continue to, figure things out as the season is going on, which is tough, because you don't have as good as chemistry as you may want to have at that point in time. It's a lot of different things that you're having to learn and go through the season, which is tough because you have opponents to beat.
Listen, a Bears quarterback situation or a Bears quarterback production issue is nothing new in Chicago. You go back to Hall of Famer Sid Luckman in the 40s, you had Jim McMahon in the 80s, and it's just been a lot of guys. What are your thoughts on Justin being able to sort of stop that run of not great quarterback play and be able to establish himself as a franchise quarterback for the Bears starting this season and going forward?
Yeah, I think he has the talent to do it. Obviously, it's a lot of things that go into it, other than just talent, but I think he has all the tools and the ability to be able to do that, and he also has a great young supporting cast, in Darnell Mooney, in David Montgomery. He has some guys, Cole Kmet. He has some guys that, that he's now got a year under his belt playing with, and they've been able to build some chemistry, so they should be able to build upon that.
Yeah. But again, that's your past now, and your future is with the Rams. And why don't we take our second break here? When we come back, we'll talk more about expectations now for Allen Robinson with the Super Bowl champion LA Rams. We're coming right back on Half Forgotten History. We all know you're planning to place a bet this weekend, so if you're going to do that, you should learn all the trends with Caesar Sportsbook and my weekly show, Trey's Trends. Look, as we begin the 103rd season of NFL football, there is a league-wide trend that cannot be ignored. Dog Day afternoons, not just a great movie, a common occurrence in the NFL. For example, last season, underdogs won 37% of the games straight up, the highest rate since 2015. And dogs have covered more than half the games in each of the past 4 seasons. Week 1 last year, off the charts historic. Underdogs were 12-4 against the spread and 9-7 straight up. Those 12 covers were the most by dogs in Week 1 in the Super Bowl era, and the 9 outright wins tied for the most in Week 1 over that time frame. You want more NFL trends to help you bet? It's very simple. Follow at Caesar Sports and Wingo's on social media for the latest episodes of Trey's Trends. As promised, the answer to our Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Vans trivia question about Allen Robinson. The quarterback that has thrown him the most touchdown catches? None other than the legend that is Blake Bortles. 22 of Robinson's 40 touchdown grabs came off the delicate arm and touch of none other than Blake Bortles. And now back to our Half Forgotten History episode with Allen Robinson. All right, back on this episode of Half Forgotten History with Allen Robinson, who hopes to write a lot of great history now as a member of the Los Angeles Rams. So answer me this one before we go anywhere else. What is it about Cooper Kupp that makes him so unguardable? I swear sometimes I watch a game and I feel like he's out there with an invisibility cloak from Harry Potter because he always seems to get open.
He has such a detailed approach when it comes to every aspect of the game. That's run game, that's pass game, that's route running, that's catch points, that's catch transitions. You know, he does everything so well. You know, and he's very cognitive of that in his approach to practice and his approach to film. You know, and it's fun to see. You know, and it's fun to be on the other side of him. You know, because like I said before, when you're playing with guys that are that meticulous at their craft, you know, it definitely challenges you as a player to be just as meticulous in what you're doing, to be just as locked into the details and focus on the details of what you want to get done as a player.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because before this season, I used to say about the Rams, I thought the receiving core was interesting. I didn't think they had a one, but they had a bunch of really good twos. You know, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, a lot of those names. And then Cooper sort of rewrote the record book and clearly let everybody know this year, no, I'm a one. I'm a true number one wide receiver with the numbers he put up. Knowing that he's going to draw all that attention, how does that translate to how you're going to attack? And you think defenses are going to try and defend you this year?
Yeah, and my approach is not different than any other year. It's making sure that I'm ready and available when my number is called. When I say available, I mean open. You know, open in the right time frame of the progression, doing everything that I need to do, you know, to make sure that when my ops are called, that I'm able to capitalize on those, you know. So it definitely doesn't change anything as far as my approach. You know, I'm coming in here, you know, trying to make every single play when my number is called.
And what if either Sean McVay or Les Snead, the Rams GM who we had on a previous episode, what if they told you about what their expectations are for you and the things that they want to see you do?
Yeah, again, the way that Coach McVay coaches and the way that this offense kind of is, again, I don't think there's not you can't pinpoint a true expectation, you know what I'm saying? Because again, how defenses play, how they adjust to what we're doing, how everything is, you know, you don't know what the defense is going to do and what they're going to play, you know, but what I can say is that, you know, again, for me being able to be moved around, for me being able to run the entire route tree, like I said before, is making sure that, you know, I'm just capitalizing on my ops, you know, and I'm sure that the ops are going to be there. You know, and it's just, you know, making sure that I'm ready when those opportunities come. And I will be, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you know, if you watch the Super Bowl, it changed dramatically when one thing happened. When Odell went down with the torn ACL, and suddenly it was, okay, for the Bengals, we just got to stop Cooper Kupp. And the offense really went through a quarter and a half for the Rams where it wasn't really working. So it proves that you can have one great wide receiver, but you have to have other options. And, you know, I think the idea of Allen Robinson coming into this team now is going to be, look, I don't want to compare you to anybody else. I don't want to say you're going to be like that, but a OBJ type situation. You know, we talked about the lull the Rams had last year when Robert Woods went down and OBJ had to have that transition to figure out his place in the offense. It just speaks to the importance of having several ways to attack teams. Do you feel like that's sort of your biggest role?
Definitely. You know, again, I mean, you always want to have more than one way to skin a cat. You know, I think in the NFL, you know, it's hard to just try to rely on one thing. Like I said before, from the way that this offense is set up, you know, playing with a veteran quarterback who's seen and played so much ball, you know, it's that everybody's viable on each and every play, you know, and it's about taking what the defense is giving us, you know, and attacking the defense and being able to make them pay, you know, for, like I said before, for things that they're doing, you know, that we can capitalize on. So again, I mean, when it comes to role, you know, like I said before, we have two receivers out there, and you know, my job is to win on each and every down. You know, that's plain and simple. You know, if that's, you know, run game, pass game, whatever that may be.
You mentioned the quarterback, Matthew Stafford. As a kid that grew up in Detroit, Is it sort of weird now that he's going to be throwing you the football?
It's pretty cool. Again, I had the chance to I believe, when I was in high school, I met Matthew for the first time because, with him being in Detroit, he would come up to our high school games a little bit. And I don't think at the time I was in high school. I believe I was in college, but I believe he was up there watching the game, and I was as well. But seeing all the work that he put in, being the best quarterback in my lifetime for the Detroit Lions, it's pretty dope to be able to come here and be able to play with him. Again, like I said before, man, he's one of the best in the business. He's done it for such a long time.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, Alan, because I think bringing in a player like you is really important for a team that has had success and has reached the mountaintop, because I think it's easy for a lot of people to say, we did it. Players that have already been there and won the ring. I've done this. And then the season starts over again. And sometimes it's up to guys like you and said, hey, that's great that you did that, but I haven't yet. And I need you to help me get what you got. Do you feel like you can be a sort of an external motivator or an internal motivator for those guys that have already sort of achieved the mountaintop?
Definitely. But being completely honest, I don't think that we have anybody who's complacent or who's just happy with the success that they've had last year. I've seen that just in this brief OTA period. How guys come to work. The effort that they put in, stand after watching tape. You have a group who truly wants to go out there and be the best team that they can be this year. And I think that's the main focus. It's about being in the moment right now. It's not about last year. It's not about the future. It's about being where our feet are right now. And taking advantage of every day and every opportunity.
And you're reunited with your former Jacksonville teammate Jalen Ramsey. What was your relationship like in Jacksonville?
It was good. It was a good, very, very competitive relationship. And I think that our relationship got better over time with some of those battles that we were having. And again, you gain respect for a player like that who's coming to the league, with very high expectations and been able to even exceed probably others' expectations. And I know, knowing how I know Jalen, I don't even think he's reached his own expectation yet. I think he still feel like, he has another step that he can take his game, which is so dope to see, as a player who's playing, the best at their position, still feel like they can take another step, and that's just the kind of guy he is, and when you see players who come out there with that intent each and every day, you can't do anything but respect it.
And you going to the Rams kind of makes all the sense in the world, because this is the way they operate. They're in a stretch where they haven't used a first-round pick in 7 years. The way they do it is, instead of like taking a chance on someone in the first round that they believe can be good, they a lot of times use that capital and go get a player that has already proven themselves to be good in the NFL. So in a way, you joining them makes all the sense after all the success you've had in the 3,000-yard seasons in the league already.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been exciting. It's been exciting in the sense that even before I signed, the approach that I was taking to this offseason, it's been the best offseason that I feel like that I've had. Just from across the board. From the time last year ended, from putting together my body, from my training regimen to the things that I want to get accomplished on the field. I've been able to have the best offseason that I've had thus far. And then now with signing and joining the Rams and pushing that forward, having a coach like Coach McVay, having a quarterback like Matthew, playing with Cooper, those things have just been, able to get on the grass with those guys now and just kind of, really see their approach, and take that to another level, So it's been very productive, man. I'm truly glad and excited to be where I'm at.
How much of a sell is LA? I'm just like around the league. I'm just curious, right? Because SoFi is, I'm sure it's the craziest stadium in the world, and it's set up in Los Angeles where there's a million different things you can do at a million different times a day. How much literally is the idea of LA a selling point for a lot of free agents?
Being able to get to a city like LA is definitely pretty cool. I think, but for me, the bigger thing was, the culture player wise, coach wise that I was joining, because again, for me, it's I'm going into my 9th year in the league now, and keeping the main thing for me, which is football, has always done me right, and that's kind of how my approach is, and that's how I like to go about it, So from the time that I got a chance to speak to Coach McVay and to Matthew and those guys, it was a easy choice, and I mean being in sunshine every day helps as well, but keeping the main thing has been very beneficial for me.
Well, listen, it's a reason why you stick around for 9 years and hopefully a lot longer. It's funny you say that, though, because we did have another taping earlier today with another player, people that may have heard of from the Detroit area, wide receiver Calvin Johnson, Megatron. And, one of the things he said, and I think you are the opposite of this, he said, one of the things that bothers me about a lot of wide receivers in the league right now is they're such divas. They're preening and prancing and, showing everything on it. I don't feel like that's you at all. I feel like you relate to what Calvin was talking about just go out there and work.
Definitely, again, and that's where it's at, and I get it, even for myself now, having a YouTube and things like that and trying to express myself a little bit more outside of football. But truly for me, it's always the main thing is the main thing. And that's everything in between the lines. That's even now, getting back, after OTA days, making sure that I'm looking through my notes, going over plays, continuing to watch, my route running, seeing how I can get better, making sure that every time I step on the field, I'm trying to focus on something that I can get better at that day, whether if it's, a catch point or, a transition in my routes or anything, because like I said before, man, football has got me this far and keeping the main thing has got me this far. So, it's no need for me to change that now, just continue to keep my head down and my foot on the gas.
And you said this is your 9th year. Calvin retired after his 9th year. I mean, it's still weird to think that he's been gone from the game for 7 seasons already. It's crazy. So in your mind, how long do you see yourself playing?
That's a good question. For me, fortunately, I came into the league early, so I was drafted at 20. So I'm 28 right now, going into year 9, and I'll be
puppy. You're a puppy,
and it feels good. It feels good to say. I can honestly say that one thing that has always felt good for me is 9 years in this league. I've never been the oldest guy in my receiver room. So that's always been been pretty cool. So I feel good, man. I'm going to year 9. My body feels good. I still got a lot left in the tank.
All right, so last year the Rams literally had the Hollywood ending. They get Matthew Stafford from Detroit, and they put it all together in his first year there. That's 2 years in a row, by the way. We've had a quarterback change teams, and that team has played a home game in the Super Bowl and won it. So that was the Hollywood ending for the Rams last year. In your mind, what's the Hollywood ending for Allen Robinson this year?
Yeah, I think helping us get back to that point, again, and it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take, like I said before, one day at a time, one game at a time, So right now it's just continuing to stack those blocks, continuing for me to, get better with learning the system, learning everything, making sure that I'm, owning it, as far as how I can bring my own element to the game. That's, from a route running standpoint, that's, being able to, catch some of those 50-50 balls, that's being able to do everything that I was brought here to do, and I think that ultimately for myself, that's all that I can ask out of myself, and I think that everything else will play out. We have a very hard-working team, a very humble team, and I think a team that's hungry and eager to get back out there, and for this 2022 team to make a name for itself.
And we'll see if Allen Robinson is the piece that makes sure the Rams do something that hasn't been done since Super Bowl 38-39 by the Patriots. Repeat as Super Bowl champs. Allen, we appreciate the time, man, and best of luck in LA, and enjoy it, all right?
I appreciate it. Thanks for you having me.
Once again, thanks to Allen Robinson for joining us on Half Forgotten History. We wish him the best of success in his first year as a member of the LA Rams. Coming up next week, a guy that you knew by a certain name when he played in the NFL, but now is doing something completely different. Jake the Snake Plummer. From being the star at Arizona State to a star at the Arizona Cardinals to being a mushroom farmer. Yeah, that happened. We'll talk about it next week with Jake Plummer. We'll see you then.